It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's our favorite day.
Hey,
It's our favorite day. It's
hey,
our favorite day.
hey,
It's our favorite day. It's
yeah,
Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. It's our favorite day. It's
yay.
our
It's your
favorite
favorite
day.
day.
Hey, guys, welcome to the Connected Corner. It's an amazing Tuesday, the very first Tuesday of October. Some of you may know it's also a national holiday here at the Connected Corner. Our amazing, wonderful Queen Bee herself is turning 25 again. It is Kiana's birthday. Happy birthday, Kiana! Happy
Hey,
birthday. How are you feeling?
I am feeling great. I was like, you know how you say your tour was introducing, I always say the B. I was great. B-Day. No.
Yeah, listen, and I'm your girl Tori Rose, and I have my amazing co-host, Miss Whom
Kiana B-Day. It's my
B-Day Jones
B-Day.
with us. Let me tell you, it is just such a blessing. I mean, this year has been a reminder, right? I think last year hit us like, wow, look at the pandemic and how it's changing things, and we've lost family members and friends to the pandemic. And then this year, it's been like reflecting and extending gratefulness and opportunities to be just sitting in gratitude. And I don't know about you, but I am grateful that you are still with us. I'm
Yes.
grateful that you had another 365. We had the opportunity to celebrate you over the weekend. And for anybody who does not know, Kiana's birthday is a national holiday. So the show goes on and on and on and on and on. And blink twice, Tori, if you need help. So if anybody wants to sow a seed into Kiana's life, please, please, please send her a cash app. She's turning 25, so go ahead and drop her $25. You can cash app it to $BCG.manage. BCG.manage. That's Kiana's birthday. Oh, God is good. And he is
I
working
know.
in
I'm
some good
excited.
stuff.
I think last year was like one of those things like, oh, what do you do? And we did a little small like house thing and, just to kind of be out. It feels so different. And I feel like some people feel like they lost a year. Like some people are doing whatever they turned last year plus one. And, I'm just grateful. I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm just really in just like gratitude and like, and
Yeah.
this weekend I was like, dang, God, I'm so blessed. Like,
Yes.
just kind of thinking of that, like where I am now. So I am ecstatic.
Awesome. I mean, tell us about some things that you've done to kind of hold yourself together over the last 2 years, really. I mean, in March, it'll be 2 years since we entered like the pandemic. I think we all thought we would be mutated into zombies by now. Thank God that has not happened. So
Right.
give us a quick one or two things that you've done to keep yourself healthy and well, mentally, physically, emotionally, or financially throughout this year.
Well, definitely. It's funny. I was just texting somebody today, and I think we mentioned this. I donated, some dollars. A friend, a colleague, she's doing a blanket drive, and then she's doing this drive for clothes. And I was like, "Well, dang, thank you so much," because like every year I've made like something charitable. We've done, the breast cancer walk and the pancreatic cancer walk, like all these different things, or I've done things with my sorority. And I was like, wow, like this year I'm just really celebrating and self-care and focusing on health. So definitely during the pandemic, like many others, I definitely picked up about, a quarantine 30 or so. And so when I felt myself like, why am I so tired? Like what's happening? Last year I started with just kind of walking and started with that, just being physical, even if we couldn't just go outside, walk up and down. And then moving into this year, I started working with a nutritionist. And so I am just doing everything like health wise, like things to improve. I have new eyes.
Yes, they're amazing. You're amazing. And I'm grateful that you didn't say walking the street because I heard you about to say it and you caught yourself like, yeah, not really walking the street. She doesn't mean like street walking,
Walking, right?
even though you can lose weight that way. It's not necessarily the Beehive Connected group recommendation. You also have on one of our very first brand shirts.
Yep.
When we first started, we lead in 2018. We also started these shirts that was focused on I, right? And so instead of it saying opportunist, it says opportunist, right? And it really is about the focus of developing oneself and being a better you and all of that. And so it's just so
I know
perfect
that I end up wearing it today.
that
I
you
know,
wore this
perfect,
shirt.
right? That I end
That
up
is
wearing it,
perfect.
yeah. Because it's definitely been a reflect every year for birthday, but just because of like COVID and just everything, it's like focusing on health, getting healthy, just feeling better and being better. I meditate way more. I pray way more. Like, we get the jokes, some of the family was like, wait a minute, she need an hour just to get her meditation and prayer. And so let's give her 3 hours to actually get ready. But it's so important and it's so necessary. It really is.
Most certainly. And it's just so good. So listen, healthy life, healthy living, healthier Kiana. You've definitely lost a lot of weight. I'm not going to throw out the numbers. And you look amazing.
Thank you.
Everybody was just like, oh, okay. As they see you, because we've been behind these virtual walls, I think it's like, oh, wow. I'm just happy to love you and know you and be your cousin and be your co-host. So happy birthday. I'm looking for 20 more days of celebratory celebrations. I'm looking forward to it. You're one of the few people who will pull me out of my COVID-free bubble. And so healthier life, healthier living, and healthier relationships. And I think that that's actually going to roll us right into our topic. We are in what is this? Show 3 of our series.
Yeah.
And over the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about the Black educated man and HBCUs and just really understanding. I'm pulling the layers off, right? And exposing why is it that the world is the way it is for our Black brothers. There is so many statistics that say, like Black men from prison, from, to college, school to prison pipeline, and men are not taking education seriously. And then on the flip side, you have data that says more men are going to college and Black men are getting degrees than ever before and dealing with depression and dealing with, suicidal thoughts and all of these things. And so I think that your birthday, your celebration and healthy relationships is a perfect segue into us talking with our guest tonight about HBCUs, how we can help keep our Black men healthy, how an educated Black man doesn't mean he's a stress-free Black man, right? And how we really bridge that gender gap that's happening, especially in the Black and brown community, where Black women are almost 3-to-1 graduating from high school, 4-to-1 graduating from college, undergraduate school, and then, oh my God, 6-to-1 graduating with the higher master's or PhD. Why is that? So we want to talk about how to get healthier, because I want my children to marry on their level, right? We have nieces, your daughter. I want them to be able to get a man with whatever aspirations they think they should have. And not a man that have to feel like, oh, my wife is making the bread and I'm just, cooking the butter or whatever. Because we know systemically this country has been positioning Black women to, by far, succeed our brothers. And we want our men to feel like men, regardless of what their educational level is. But we want them to have the same options that we've had.
Yes,
especially as mothers of sons. So,
yes.
Without further ado, will you introduce our amazing guest for this week? Oh, and before you do, I want to say, for anybody who's watching, let us know where you're watching from. Comment in the comment section. Are you on Facebook? Are you on YouTube? Have you subscribed? If not, what you waiting for? So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go to youtube.com, type in the search bar, The Connected Corner. It's phonetically spelled. No surprises, no silent K's. Go ahead and hit
the Connected Corner.
The Connected Corner. No silent K's. Go ahead and hit subscribe. Also hit share. Post it on your social media. Let your friends know what we're talking about. This is really where you get news and resources you can use. And it's a topic that most people don't think about. I know as a Black woman, sometimes I've dogged our brothers like, girl, he don't even have a job. Not understanding that statistically, in this great country of the Americas with a K or 3, it's been systemically placed and positioned for it to be harder for our men. So get in the topic, get in the conversation. Let us know where you're watching from. And without further ado, Kiana, let us know who tonight's guest is.
Yeah, so I am excited. We have somebody just, reading. I mean, you guys are going to get to learn more and know more. But when I was reading this gentleman's bio, I was like, oh my goodness, like, woo, this is just going to be awesome. This is going to be a great guest, great perspective. And so tonight, you guys, we have Mr. Derrick Coley with us from Bowie State University. And we are just excited to have him. He deals with legislation and liaison for local, state, federal government issues at the university. He implements outreach and advocacy programs and plans at the university, which is extra exciting to me because I have a senior currently at Bowie State University. And so, just seeing just in the 4 years that she's been there, just the growth of the university. So I'm excited to bring to you, without further ado, Mr. Derrick Coley. Hey.
Hello, ladies. How are you all today?
Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you just, like I said, we'll get into all the different things that you are doing or have done, and just being a part of government relations at Bowie State, yes, working out of the president's office. I mean, that in itself, I was like, ooh, and then I said, wow, I'm going to be on here tonight with two government and history and political and policy people. So y'all, I'm going to bring the fun tonight. Okay.
We'll keep it light.
Yeah. I have a whole encyclopedia. You're telling me I can't read this word by word tonight? Is that what you're telling me?
But it's important. It's important. I think people don't realize how much of those things impact everything that they do. And of course, I've learned this over the last couple of years because I try to make everything about business, right. And I'm a numbers person. But then being a part of politics more the last 4 or 5 years, I've worked on like 3 to 4 campaigns. I'm like, wow, nobody told me this. Like, why didn't they present it this way in school? They make government and all those things so boring. And then when you come out in the world, you realize y'all really should have told us more about this. Like, we needed to know these things. And so I'm excited to have you bring that perspective to our viewers.
Kiana and Tori, thank you for inviting me tonight. And Kiana, to your point, I've been telling colleagues and others, we are in the third Reconstruction period in this country. January 6th, that was a clear indication of how important the vote was, because some folk, in fact, became woke. And they said, I can't believe, in fact, that President Joe Biden did win. To your point, in terms of the right to vote, after the Civil War, when African Americans were freed and they exercised their right to vote, Southern states realized the population numbers and one man, one vote, one ballot, 1-to-1 was very powerful. And in fact, that began the first Reconstruction period with respect to them taking our rights in terms of disenfranchisement and the right to vote away from us.
Most certainly. And it's amazing that you started with Reconstruction, because most people, as Kiana said, don't have the desire really to learn about history and to go back. You hear 1800s and they feel like, oh my God, why do I need to know that? Right. But they're not understanding that we're really living in the aftermath and the ramifications of those decisions of the framers of this country. It's only getting worse because we're getting more and more disconnected from the process. As you talked about Reconstruction, it marked the beginning of what we know now is the civil rights movement, civil rights era, and those types of things. And so tell us a little bit about your foundation. So that's the foundation of the country, your foundation. Tell us a little bit more about your K-12 education. And did you have teachers that looked like you? Did you have Black male teachers?
So that was a very interesting question, because most of my teachers were African-American female initially, and also white females. I did not have an African-American male teacher until high school. And in fact, that class was chemistry. And may he rest in peace at Suitland High School. However, I did have another African-American male teacher who turned my life around a complete 180 degrees, and that was Zach Berry. And may he also rest in peace. He actually founded and helped create what's called the Rites of Passage at Suitland High School. And I was one of the initial members of the Rites of Passage in terms of organizing that African-American Male Achievement Program at Suitland High School. I was one of those young men who had 1 foot in, 1 foot out, always kind of hanging out, with the guys I grew up with in Capitol Heights and Suitland and Shady Side. And Zach Berry looked at me one day and said, Derrick, you really have a lot of potential. You need to look at life a little differently. And he really pressed me. I remember I missed a meeting, and he said, where were you yesterday evening? And I basically was hanging out. And he said, you can't be a part of this organization and not being committed. And that's what kind of turned me around with respect to being committed to a cause and being focused on African American male achievement and being an example for other students in the school.
Wow, that is so good. And you saying that, one of the things I, wrote down, mentorship. I'm hearing, programs and mentorship really makes a difference. And we know that even now, which is needed. And so as we think about that, why do you think there isn't an abundance of Black male educators? And, what are some of the things, like when I think about mentorship, maybe now pushing some of those male mentorship programs, pushing them into education. But outside of that, why do you think currently we don't have that abundance of Black male educators?
Kiana and Tori, that's a very good question, because I'm sitting here right now thinking about my immediate circle of friends. And I know that a lot of my friends with my family don't talk about their sons becoming educators. And so we have to start at a younger age with respect to some of our children within our own families and kind of pushing education as a viable occupation and a career. But more importantly, say, for example, a student does, because I'm at the university now. Say, for example, an African-American male student does want to become an educator. Say he's a science major, arts major, history major, or even a mathematics major. He may want to take on the exams and things of that nature. The barriers to entry to take those classes to study, similar to the SAT, are very expensive. And also the actual exam cost to sit in the chair to even take the exam is a barrier to entry. And so even if an African American male does get past the exam feature and become certified, while national standards and state standards are important, once he gets in the classroom or particular school, oftentimes a lot of African American male teachers then become disciplinarians and become patrol leaders in terms of those children who are in detention. And if all you want to do is teach arts, history, government, science, math, you don't want to be saddled down with a second duties as described with respect to those children who are at risk. And so then I'm that young man who's an educator, African American male educator. I then go home for Thanksgiving. I go home for Christmas. I'm in the backyard barbecues. I'm at the fish fries. What am I telling my young cousins and nieces and nephews who are looking up to me? You don't want to become a teacher. I'm about to change careers. I'm burnt out and I'm tired. So there are some things within our school systems that have to be addressed from a policy standpoint in terms of adding on another layer, another burden to these African American male teachers, in terms of making them sit and watch kids in detention or actually become those quote unquote vice principals who are in charge of those at-risk youth and things of that nature as well. We have to talk about the real issues here. But more importantly, Dr. Ivory Tolson talks about the positives in education. And one of the paradigm shifts we have to look at as African Americans is reclaiming our legacy. African American educators in particular came out of the church. We came out of mosque years ago. We must reclaim that legacy, because in the traditional constructs of a school system, I understand those numbers. However, there are hundreds of thousands of African American men across this country who are not counted in that statistic. If Dr. Tolson was on the call, with respect to being educators in a non-traditional sense. You also have African American men who are scout leaders, who teach life skills and those things. Also African American men who do community service projects and teach in community centers across this country. In my humble opinion, we need to count those men as well, because they in fact are doing a great public good and a great public service, being quote unquote non-traditional educators who may not be certified by state or national standards, but nonetheless are preventing that youth and that child from picking up a gun, picking up a pipe to smoke crack and things of that nature, even distributing drugs. Those men are standing in the gap and living legacies in our communities today.
Listen, you just dropped mics. I feel like we could just end the show. I mean, mics being dropped. Social media and the focus on the baller, the man with all of this money that's a womanizer, and all of this stuff has shifted how we see and how our children see the Black man. And oftentimes when we're talking about repairing the image of the Black man, we're talking about from a husband standpoint, a father standpoint. I was a young lady who I mentor was sharing with me, she's reading a book called The African American Male, A Dying Breed. It's like How to Fix the American Husband or something like that, The Fix. And I said, but our men aren't broken. The system is. And I love what you're saying. Yes, we could look and pick apart any specific person. Black men are not the only men who leave families. Black men are not the only men who are incarcerated.
Amen.
But
Amen.
the focus of reprogramming our children who used to be extremely proud to be in little suits and going to school very well polished, we have to reprogram them. I'm sorry. Whew, you got me excited. Okay, let me pull it in.
Tori, you're hitting the nail on the head. We have to reclaim our own legacy within our communities and within our families. If everyone believes the news, then we won't see anything else. And we all know here on this podcast tonight that the news is not accurate, especially as it relates to the African American community. It doesn't talk about the millions of dollars in scholarship opportunities that some of our children are receiving throughout school districts throughout this nation to go up on the ladder rung and go further than their parents have ever gone. So Tori, to your point, in terms of fixing what's broken, it's not about being broken. It's about doubling down and increasing our efforts and our energy and girding ourselves, because we are under the constructs after George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement. We all knew about racial discrimination, but to see that man die live television in our eyes, I think psychologically it broke a lot of African Americans down, and it just was the unbearable truth that we are still where we are in terms of our existence and our sojourn in this country.
Most certainly. And this false sense of us being powerless. And it's unfortunate because we see the emergence of the have and the have-nots and these power shifts. And we have to understand that it really came together, strength in numbers, that we're the most powerful race in this country. We're just the most divided. That's something that Dr. Lewis, and I don't know if he's still at Bowie, but I am a Bowie State graduate. So it's, you and the topic is so near and dear to my heart. But Dr. Lewis would always ask me a couple of questions, and he would say, who put the strategy in place and who benefits from it? And now here I am all of these years later, working on my master's again and again and again, but this time I'm going to finish it, right? Working on my master's in educational leadership with a focus on public policy. And I'm looking and I'm asking myself, who's benefiting? And oftentimes the policies, even if they're passed and created or introduced by African Americans, we are not benefiting from them because the people who are at the top of the rung, who are puppeteering, the Geppettos, have a Black face in front of the policy, but it's not benefiting Black people. So I went to Bowie. Bowie shaped who I am. I have a degree in history and government, political science, because of my experience at Bowie. Derrick, what college did you go to? And if it was a HBCU, why did you choose that school?
I did not go to an HBCU initially. I went to North Carolina State University, which is a predominantly white institution. And here's a strange thing about my attendance at North Carolina State. Although I did apply to North Carolina A&T, but I had a high school sweetheart. My mom and dad were like, "Oh no, you cannot be that close in Greensboro together unsupervised." So I ended up moving to Raleigh and North Carolina State University. But Tori and Kiana, all of my mentors, all of the men and women whose shoulders I stand on to this day went to HBCUs, Claflin College, South Carolina State University, Virginia Union, Benedict College. I mean, all of my mentors in my life came through that legacy of the HBCU experience. So when the opportunity came to serve in the capacity that I am at Bowie State University, I already had a natural instinct and affinity for what the HBCU experience meant and what the legacy was. So when I came through the door, there was no question in my mind and there was no doubt about what I was committed to do and what I had to do in the mission that was before me. I walked in, I sat in my office, and I literally said a prayer one day, and I said, if Harriet Tubman can free over 500 slaves, I can help over 500 plus students at this HBCU. So I committed myself. Even though I work in government relations and government affairs, doing legislation and funding, I'm committed to helping those students who need financial aid assistance, helping those students who need housing, helping those students who have class issues. Because at the end of the day, I owe my life to them and their ancestors as well with respect to where I am today in terms of Bowie State University and my career and my purpose in life. I mean, I kid you not. I mean, one of my greatest mentors, Dr. Hvcus Witherspoon, went to Claflin University, and he literally, my father was like a godson to him, and he took me in as a grandson. And he literally walked and talked with me for 2.5 years, educating me about, listen, while you're in this environment, you also owe a debt of gratitude to individuals like myself who are able to be in this environment because of HBCUs. Because had it not been for Claflin University, he wouldn't have become the faculty member, the professor he was at NC State. And that's just the real, honest truth. You know, Dr. Lawrence Clark went to Virginia Union. I mean, he and I spent many weekends together between Raleigh, North Carolina, and Danville, Virginia. And he showed me the vision of how a man can take his mind in his hands and create an actual African-American retreat called Beacon Ridge. And I was there helping to build that retreat with my hands doing installation and carpentry and other things with him at that actual retreat. And I'm 17, 18 years old. And it just turned my life around to understand and see that here are these men who are committed to a legacy. And the HBCU experience laid that foundation for them in their communities and so forth.
I love, and we, sometimes we'll get to the key question, but, that legacy, I'm using that term, and I think really people understanding what that means. And so we've talked about that before on shows. And so just you guys understanding, hearing that, we want to hear from you. What does that word, Mr. Coley has used it several times in talking about our legacy in our community, our families. What does that mean? Because I think some of what we've lost, that we don't think we have legacy, nor do we think that we still have the responsibility to continue to build a legacy. Mm-hmm. And so I love that you're using that. And I just everybody, hey, tell us, in the comments, what does legacy mean to you? What do you know anything about your legacy? And what are you doing to continue, increase, or build it from here now for you and your children and grandchildren? So thank you so much for that. I was like, oh, he keeps saying, I'm like, I want everybody to get it, like really hear that because it's important. You mentioned going to predominantly white school. We know, just period out here, just dealing with, the racial issues and things of that nature. As a Black student a Black male in particular, going to a predominantly white university, did you find it easy? Did you encounter, the racialized things that we know are in education? Did you experience any of that?
That is a very good question. I did. And it was a huge adjustment coming out of Prince George's County, Maryland, where, as part of the majority population, even my school, Sewell High School, we were like 85% African-American, 90% African-American when I graduated. And then going to Raleigh, North Carolina was a huge adjustment. But, let me just say, I had the opportunity to actually get an internship my freshman summer. And I worked in a research lab in plant physiology under a faculty member at the time named Dr. Deborah Neer. And she's at the University of Vermont right now. I'm doing her research, still working. Dr. Neer was amazing in terms of allowing me to settle in and be myself and be smart and be cool. Oftentimes as African-American males, we don't want people to know how smart we really are. Not to say we dumb ourselves down, but we don't tell the full truth in terms of what we know and how effective we are in terms of our logic skills and our process and our thinking. And that's unfortunate because society has put that on us. Because as you mentioned earlier, Tori, with respect to the baller and all these social stereotypes that we have to live up to, it's like, no. You can be articulate, you can be smart, you can just be yourself and just have a good time. And Dr. Deborah Neer's lab that summer, there was a graduate assistant named Steve Peck. He and I worked, and just the ability to work on insects. I couldn't believe the fact that I was getting paid to collect insects on farm ponds in North Carolina and actually document and catalog bugs. I mean, at the end of the day, it was research on insects and bugs and to count them. And that just opened my eyes to the connectivity of how important science is with respect to our food chain and everything that we touch in terms of food production and what we eat and pesticides and herbicides and our living environment. And that changed my life with respect to my focus and my major as well, because traditionally I'm a biological scientist by training with the focus on environment and environmental studies and so forth. However, I do government relations and politics and policy and so forth. But to your point, it did turn. It was an adjustment change, and I had to open my mind. And if I can say anything to young brothers out there today, keep an open mind. I mean, advice is free, but I did not realize how important that advice was, because if you have a narrow construct of thinking and you don't have the ability to actually listen and turn the coin around and ask yourself, did I really hear that person right, or am I being emotional and overthinking what they're saying or what they're doing? Slow down and stop and keep an open mind about the process, and actually take your time through such situations before you jump to conclusions. And that actually allowed me to kind of readjust and refocus and actually enjoy my college experience. Even though there were still challenges in terms of racial discrimination, I was able to mitigate and overcome those hurdles and so forth.
That's just so powerful. And what's interesting is when we have these conversations, we get to really pull back the layers and get to know our guests so much more. And we get to see so many commonalities. And so as a child, I wanted to be an entomologist. I was into bugs. I like bugs. But this is what's interesting in Black households. We are politicized from birth, right? Black households are the most stringent households to be raised in. We are traumatized about certain things that other children can go out in the backyard and play and pick up insects. I can't tell you how many times my grandfather would throw stuff away, say, "Ew, this is dirty. This is nasty. What are you doing? Don't play with these bugs. Why are you doing this?" And it was this, it's almost a microaggression, a racialized microaggression. You have to be seen as clean and you have to be seen as upright in the eyes of the world. And playing with bugs meant you were dirty.
Yes.
And it was literally over the summer just passed, I was reading something about how slaves, as they were running away, they understood how the moss grew on trees, and they understood what bugs grew in certain areas or lived in certain areas. And they knew if they were on the right paths by the trees, by the bugs, by the stars. We have been given by the greatest source, by the God source, all that we need to survive as a people. And unfortunately, we've been programmed to be clean and to be upright and to be all of these things. And in so much so, we've lost who we are naturally, And so here at the Connected Corner, we focus and we strive to give our audience news and resources they can use. We strive to have crucial conversations that maybe even ouch and step on your toes. But if it hurts your toes to open your nose, then we're willing to do it. So for anybody watching, please make sure you are following us on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram. We are the Connected Corner. Subscribe to our channel, hit that button so you can be notified when we go live, and also share, because this is a good topic and we don't want to leave you out. So Derrick, we've talked about some things. Let's really get to the root. I know you do a lot of legislative work. We've cut a rug at a couple of legislative events, and those things are nice. Just to be honest, before politics, I never attended because I felt like at times they could be check boxes. Right. And I don't like to just go to things and wear a dress and check a box, pay my $150 and say that I did something for the cause when I could be actually doing something for the cause. Right. But it is important for us to gather, and it's important for us as like-minded individuals to come together and dialogue. And so what policy changes and policy initiatives are needed to really support Black males in HBCUs and in college overall?
When I think about this, and it's very important and critical, what I see, because I also, ladies, attend college fairs as a volunteer to kind of help shepherd students through. And what I've heard since 1998, when I graduated and I began doing college fairs, was that a counselor did not tell me. And by and large, we still have a huge population of first generation college bound. And also there are some students who may be second generation and third generation, but they may be disconnected because for whatever reason, their mother or father may have passed away or will not be in their lives. As a result, we need more and more school counselors, and resources focused on those counselors starting in middle school, in my humble opinion, to basically throw an armada of an army at all these young people out there who really need someone to sit down, because we've realized since the pandemic and COVID-19 that the mental health awareness and mental health is relevant, in particular as relates to African Americans. And we have been able to fight through the barrier for so many years since slavery, saying we were okay. Now it's okay to say you're not okay. And there are a lot of young people, especially in middle school, with their transitions and what they're going through in terms of adolescence, who need someone without an agenda, with an open ear and an honest heart, to sit down and to hear their dreams and aspirations and to help guide them through the process. And I think as a policy change, to answer your question, Tori, we need school systems to look at having more resources, reading resource teachers, math resource teachers, science resource teachers, but also school counselors who can begin the process of asking young people, what do you like to do? What interests you? Tori, you play with bugs? You can have a corner in my classroom and keep an aquarium or two with your bugs in it. I mean, if your grandfather won't let you have the bugs at home, maybe I can connect you to a science teacher and you can be that young person who comes in every day and you have your own aquariums with your bugs that you attend to. You have to stop into school early in the morning and come by before you go home at the end of the day to make sure your bugs are okay. This is what we need in terms of African American students and resources to kind of break that chain. Most importantly, when we get to the end of the bottom of it, we have to look at juvenile services and the amount of money we throw at this issue. It's not working. It's only becoming more urgent that we look at the school systems and provide more resources to educators and those individuals who really are the first responders with respect to education for our young people, and treat them with the same respect as we do police, fire, and emergency workers as well. Because without teachers, there is no nation.
Wow, I got a first responders in education. I'm trying to get my words together because my brain
is. You're speechless.
I'm speechless.
Yes.
A couple of reasons, like just everything that you were saying. A lot of people know Tori and I both have gone into the education field. I went in, I left, and I missed it so bad. And I was a career changer. But literally everything that you have said tonight in reference to being Black male teachers, and even sometimes of us as Black women,
Yes.
because, you know, it was hard pressed for me to get GT and honors classes. And I would have an entire schedule. I taught math of, you know, standard geometry and, literally I've been switched from having algebra 2 and pre-college math to saying, can you please take the geometry and algebra 1 classes for us?
See what I mean?
Yeah. And so I understood what it was and what it meant. And you do, after a while, it's like, can I teach trig too, please? And so it is happening. It is definitely happening, and it's continued to happen. And it was a 10-year break from when I left and came back.
Wow.
Nothing had changed.
Wow.
It was still the same.
And
so, it really is disheartening. But the first responder piece, I'm now, not in education again and back in, the nonprofit world, but I'm dealing with that first responders and an emergency preparedness way. So it was just so interesting to now take what I'm doing back in this, grant and nonprofit world, and literally saying that and thinking about our teachers like that. They're the first line of defense and first responders. So thank you. That it just came full circle into perspective for me. I just looked, Tori's laughing because, I was like, oh my goodness, you just brought it all back. Oh, yeah. And, I'm sitting here, took a note. I'm like, you're not going to get me to go back to school. I'm not going back to school for counseling. I saw her brain and I'm like, okay, maybe that's how I'll go back the next time, but it is needed. It is, because I think some of us as teachers, we end up being the counselor, and exactly what you said. It's like, well, I didn't know. But thank you so much. I mean, are you guys getting this? I know we have a lot of viewers who have children that are currently in grade school. Myself, I have 2 in college. And so this information is so important. We know a lot of people like the part 1 and part 2. And, you guys were saying, thank you for doing this. I mean, it's just going to get richer and richer. So make sure that you keep watching, keep following, and subscribe, because it's just going to get better. And this is information, of course, that you all can use. Students, you have students, you're going to have students. We all have to go through this matriculation process through school. And so this is just such good information for everyone. So make sure you guys subscribe and continue to follow us, so you can continue to get this. So we talked about, the support of what is needed. What do you believe the African American community should be instilling in their children before college? We know that we need the counselors to tell them about it, but even from the community standpoint and home, what are some of the things that we should be instilling in our children even before college?
That's a thought that I have over and over again, because even at Bowie State University, over 60% of our students is Pell Grant eligible, which is, a socioeconomic status where they need as much financial assistance, if not all financial assistance, to attend the university. And, early on, I think a lot of families should begin having the discussion, because let me be clear. I realize college and universities are not for everybody. I actually have a trade in landscape horticulture where I do yard work, basically. And I did that to pay for my tuition and undergrad, and continued doing that until I began having a family. I didn't have enough time. But by and large, there are some of those among us, and families should have a serious conversation to say, if you don't want to go to college or university, my mom asked me this question as a single parent, what do you want to do then? And I had to pause and really think about it. And families should begin having conversations to ask their young people to say, hey, what is it that you really want to do? And ask questions of church members. If not attending church or a faith-based institution or a mosque, then ask neighbors. I've had students, Kiana and Tori, walk into my office and said, my grandmother wanted me to come talk to you. She attends church at such and such and such and such, and she knows one of the deaconesses there, and I have no idea who that deaconess is. But they showed up in my office at Bowie State University to ask questions, to try to find financial aid or internship assistance. And families, you have to ask questions of those around you. Oftentimes, I'll tell you the real heartbreak as well, even in my own family. I'll open myself up for them to ask me questions, and they won't ask. And part of it, I don't understand why. I don't know if it's just an embarrassment, but I'm not there to embarrass my family. And I want African Americans across this radio station and this blog podcast to understand that you need to ask for help. If you don't know, you don't know. And you need to find, and I'm not going to get religious, but in Matthew 7:7, it says, seek ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open, ask and it shall be given. And at the end of the day, again, you have to be in a position where you say to yourself, I don't have all the answers. And I've told students, I'm not certain, but let me go find an answer for you. I don't sit there and pretend. And families, we all have to come together, whether distance or close cousins, and begin to talk and have a conversation. It's more than basketball. It's more than Miami. It's more than getting lit and getting turned. And it's more than, all this stuff that we do talk about and look at social media as, influencers of, Fashion Nova and all this other stuff. There's a lot more to living. And we're not living, we're just surviving. And Dr. Clark, one of my mentors, looked at me one day and he said, listen, slow down. You're doing a lot of surviving, but you're not living. Slow down and actually live and be strategic about what you're trying to accomplish and what your purpose is in life. Ask your family members or your neighbors or somebody. I had a neighbor stop me at a gas station recently and said, there's a young man in our neighborhood you don't know about, but he's over at Bowie. He came and talked to me. And you know what? I looked at myself and I said, you know what? You just never know where people are in life.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, you've said so much. I want to give a shout out to Diamond K, who is our media and radio partner. And he is a producer. Most people know Diamond K as the club music maker and all of this. He is so intelligent. He's muy inteligente. He always is having critical conversations about public policy and changes that are necessary for our people and the advancement of African Americans and minoritized and marginalized communities. Brilliant mind. So I want to give a shout out to him because he has also helped us frame our show. But unfortunately, most people only know him as and it's like, unfortunately, we again have disconnected ourselves from who we are at the core of who God purposed us to be. And no offense to anybody about being super deep. The reality is we are failing because we are lacking knowledge, and the word says that. And so I'm not going to go there because we'll be here and then I'll be taking an offering and speaking in tongues and all of that. So I'm going to try to pull it back in, but I wanted to give a shout out to Diamond K. He is a great example of someone who can do it all. He's educated, he's polished, he's still worldly. He's a African-American man that is touching people in other cities. And if you guys don't know him, get connected to him in Radio on Fire as well. I also want to give a shout out to my godfather, Dr. Marco Clark, because if you say Clark one more time and I don't say shout out to Dr. Marco Clark, who is the founder and director of the Richard Wright Academy in Washington, D.C. I need to just shout him out because I was 13 years old when he and Tracy Morton became my godparents. And the first thing he said to me is, excuses are what? Monuments.
Dime a dozen. Oh, okay. Say that
and
again.
They build bridges to nowhere. So he was grooming me. I'm not even a boy. I'm the son he never had, right? He was grooming me to understand that the only thing that was going to stand in my way was me. And for years, being afraid to be intelligent in public, being afraid to be honest about what I knew or what I didn't know, even going to Western and dealing with the racial microaggressions, having white counselors and white staff members who would say things like, you're such a pretty Black girl. What does that even mean? Right. And so this is a cultural attack. It's a racial attack, and it's definitely an attack on Black men. So my brain, I need 2 hours just to talk to Derrick. You see, Kiana, I'm like skipping.
I know. It's just so much like, people say they love the way we team tag and, watching the show, but sometimes it's so hard. And I realize now, you guys notice I have to go on mute, because if not, I'll be like the amen corn. I'm like, yes, he is talking to, yeah,
he is seeing it.
I mean, he is doing it. So just seeing that, what's going on, you're knowledgeable and you're giving that information, but all in how you're saying things, which is so important, which a lot of educators and people miss, is that you have also shown through things you're saying, you're connected and understand how to reach the young people.
Yes.
Right. And knowing
most certainly. Because when he said Fashion Nova, I was like, I threw all business acumen out the window, and so my godfather was at Walbrook when I was a junior at Bowie. He was at Walbrook and it was transitioning to Maritime Academy. Mm-hmm. And he is truly Joe Clark reincarnated. And so he allowed me to meet a Delta and get under her wing and come into the classroom. And I'm sorry, I got some background noise. My son is doing some studying, so he's in the background. But anyway, so I wanted to be an educator then, but I fell into the trap of, am I going to make enough money? Some of the things that you've said, especially about the barbecue burnout, Kiana being my bigger cousin, Kiana is 9 years older than me. So if she's 25, I'm like 16. And she taught me that as an educator, I have to first be whole before I can pour into my students. So a lot of times when people say, y'all stepped out of the classroom again, yes, because my children, my kiddos, my students deserve a whole version of me. And so that means I have to step out of the classroom to go do something else, to hit the reset button, to learn, to grow, to stretch, to build capacity, and then come back and teach for another few years. That's what I'm going to do. And so I wanted to just piggyback on that, because I was not only one of the youngest people in my department as a history and government teacher, I was the only Black person in the department outside of our chair. And representation was so important, because in the school when I changed to come into education, the school was historically all white. It's now being flooded, and that's what the white teachers would say to me. It's being flooded like these are roaches.
Yes.
So we have to be careful of what teachers are saying about our children. It's being flooded like it is a rat infestation of diversity, and so the challenges that we face, guys, the reason we're having these topics is because we have to wake up and we have to step up. If you have a degree, if you have a content area or a subject that you love, that you would just talk about for free, and you also don't like what you're currently doing, go and see what they're paying in the local schools. Go teach, go mentor, figure out how you can pour into somebody else, even if it's just for a year or two. There is no mismanagement, and it's not in vain. When I taught for 3 years, right, because of COVID, and I stepped out of the classroom, or 2 years because of COVID, stepped out of the classroom, but my students are still calling me today. They're still reaching out. Because all it takes is for you to be there to help them, to love on them, to listen to them, to guide them, for them to say, oh, that's my teacher for life. it doesn't have to be a 20-year career that burns you out and leaves you rusty and dusty. So we're going to have you back. There's no other way of saying it, because I got all these notes and I'm typing all this stuff and I'm not going to be able to say it all. So before we get into key questions, I want to ask this one question, and then I want to shift to Key's questions, and then we'll let you go to your family. How can we continue to advance the mission of HBCUs?
That's it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at this point, because the Black Lives Matters movement has literally took a match to gasoline. Our enrollment at Bowie State University, Morgan State, UMES, Coppin is through the roof across all 4 HBCUs in Maryland. And that in of itself is not enough, because we also need more federal funding with respect to research infrastructure on our campuses. For far too long, there have been great ideas that may have died on the vine because of equipment needs at HBCUs and the fact that we did not have enough money. And we could have been like Percy Julian, Charles Drew, and others throughout history, making huge monumental discoveries. Even George Washington Carver, Little Tuskegee Institute back in the day, when no colleges across the country had money, with all those things he did with a peanut. Could you imagine where we could be today if the federal government invested in HBCUs? But more importantly, there are states around this country who still refuse to give HBCUs their fair share of funding with respect to them being institutions, and creating such a strong workforce with so many African Americans with masters and PhD degrees and fulfilling the workforce needs of this great nation. And still, for whatever reason, they're not ponying up what should be attributed with respect to the research dollars they need for infrastructure. So to answer your question, Tori, we need as much money as possible regarding research dollars to build the infrastructure on our campuses, but not just our campuses, around our campuses as well, because if you look at a lot of HBCUs, they're in areas that need an economic whirlwind to take place, to set them on fire, to be even stronger economic engines. Because if we're doing a lot with a little, imagine what we can do with a lot, in a sense. So, we just need funding and continued commitment, because there are billions of dollars that come out of federal agencies in our nation that go to other institutions. And if we, Department of Defense and other funds, we got Congressman Anthony Brown and Congressman Steny Hoyer and others on Capitol Hill, fighting for those funds to be directed towards HBCUs, because diversity. We all know that everybody doesn't look at a problem the same way. And if you really want to invest in the future and break the prison pipeline, HBCUs and those fish fries and barbecues and Thanksgiving tables is where it's at. Because when you come back home and your family sees the glitter in your eye and opportunity and hope, everybody catches on fire in that household, in that community. And they say, I can do it too. Yeah. It's just a real talk,
Wow. It's just, we definitely we're going to have to do a part 3B. A part 3B coming your way.
Oh no, thank you, ladies.
Yeah, because everybody know, like viewers, family, I'm so passionate about education. And much like you say, it doesn't have to be college or formal. I had those discussions with my children. What do you want to do? Does it make sense for 4 years? Do you need a master's? Like we had those conversations. I had it with students and so forth. And so, everything here, you guys, is so important. Again, if you haven't subscribed, if you're watching us from Facebook or YouTube, let us know, what platform you're watching us from. Let us know your location, geographically where you're watching us from. But this is important across the board. We're talking about HBCUs and schools here in Maryland, but this pertains to everyone globally around, what we're dealing with here. So make sure you guys stay tuned. And so we have gotten to the special part of the Connected Corner. So it is key questions. And so, you're going to loosen up. Don't sweat. You don't have to be nervous. No.
Okay.
But look, it's going to be time.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know this part.
So it's it's just a quick answer, and so it's 3 questions. You'll have 2 minutes to really kind of just think of those questions, and it's those general things. But again, we always want to bring people news and resources, and nuggets and wisdom they can get in any way. And so I'll turn the timer over after I read the first question. And so you guys who are, great supporters of us at the Connected Corner, you know how this works. We're going to drop the question also in the comments. And then you can also give us your answer as well. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read the first question. There are going to be 3, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer all 3.
Okay.
And so the first one is, what is one piece of advice you would give your 20-year-old self? So one piece of advice you would give your 20-year-old self. And start.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes. If I was 20 years old again, I would tell myself to slow down and to pay attention more with respect to my education and my career goals.
Wow, that's good. And that was the line I was thinking about because we're talking about college.
Thank you.
So what is one thing about the work you do that puts a smile on your face?
Recently I had one of my mentees who I talked to in 2019 about career choices. And I sat there, and there were 3 of them in the room with me. And they were all at Bowie State. And I looked at him and I said, that career at Coca-Cola means a lot. I think you really enjoy working for Coca-Cola. He came back and looked at me 2 weeks ago and said, I have a job offer with Coca-Cola in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that put a huge smile on my face because I saw it in him that his personality, his intelligence, his charisma could go a long way in marketing for someone in an organization such as Coca-Cola in the industry. And he's there. He's making a difference.
Wow, that is so awesome. Oh, I'm not going to cry. All right. And the last question, how do you deal with burnout or feeling unmotivated?
That's a very good question, because I think one of the lessons I've learned recently is that it's okay to retreat and spend time with your children and your family. I think oftentimes as African-American men, we think we got to stay on the front line, the battle of Gideon, and hold up our sword and shield and fight. But it's okay to retreat sometimes to re-energize and reconnect. And one of the ways that I've learned to retreat is that I do have a bona fide fishing partner, whether saltwater or freshwater, in my youngest son. My oldest daughter, she doesn't like freshwater fishing. She only wants to do saltwater fishing because she likes those fish better when we cook them. However, my youngest son says, Daddy, I don't care. I can catch minnows as long as we go out on some water somewhere and we're hanging out. And so, Kiana, to answer your question, that's the way I recharge. I've learned as an African-American man that hypertension and stress is an early death. It's okay to retreat and to find solace. And if you don't have a family, find something you do like reading, or just taking a walk in the woods or the park with some friends. You don't have to spend money to do something that can recharge and replenish your spirit and your batteries.
Wow. Well, that's good. You did 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay.
He said, I'm sorry. No, it was well worth it.
Okay.
Because I think that is so important, like to understand self-care. And we also have to connect you to our Uncle Craig, who does about 3 or 4 fishing trips per year. So
yes.
We have some fishermen and golfers in our family. But yeah, our uncles do fishing trips every year.
Let me know. Most definitely. Yep. Please, Kiana, to her. Yes.
You would love it. And unfortunately, I've never been invited because I'm a girl. So the girls don't get to come.
No,
but it's so needed. And I think sometimes as a female, as a woman, we think we're supposed to be just invited to everything all the time. That is a sacred space, and you guys need that. Listen, this has been a dynamic conversation. I know I've been told before that I'm too racially focused and all of that stuff. You're not ever too racially focused when inequity and inequality still exist. We've been doing a study in my master's program of a high school called Riverview High School, and you guys Google the school, you can check it out. There's so much statistics there. If you do not believe that segregation is still alive and well, take a moment and think about who teaches your children. Close your eyes and think about a teacher. When you think of teachers, more than likely you think of white and you think of woman. And so segregation is so happening every day. It's still happening. And we have so much more work to do. These conversations are needed. They're critical. Take something from it. Derrick, you have been a beacon. And we are forever grateful. We thank you so much. We know that statistically, Black boys are usually at the bottom of a lot of the different categories. And when we're talking about measuring educational attainment, when we're talking about what's considered risk, what is actually an at-risk youth, right? We use those words all the time. How do we change the language? How do we change the perception, even as educators, when we interact with our children? There's inner work that needs to be done. And I believe that everything you shared with us today gives us a plan. It gives us a path to follow. And it gives us really like an opportunity just to be better tomorrow than we were today. So I want to say thank you. Can you tell our viewers, our listeners, how to find you and how to get connected to you?
Well, I'm at Bowie State University. I'm not very hard to find. You ask anyone where Derrick Coley is on campus. I try to talk to a lot of people to just help everybody there on campus, make myself known. Also, I'm on Twitter at Coley Derrick on Twitter, and I'm also on Facebook under my name, Derrick Coley, on Facebook as well. So please reach out to me if you like to. And Tori and Kiana, if I also may want to have the opportunity to say, I also want to thank my current mentors in my life, Dr. Sean Coleman at Bowie State University, Dr. Wilbur Parker, also Dr. Julius Davis, and others who are leading the charge with respect to African-American male educators and reclaiming our rightful place in terms of educating our own communities and building ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Is Dr. Don Kaya still at Bowie?
What department is that? That doesn't ring a bell.
Admissions, registration, I think.
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
I have to find him. I owe him an eternal thank you. And we are going to talk to Dr. Julius Davis. We are excited he'll be on the show. But Dr. Kaya at Bowie, I was at a pivotal crossroads where I almost walked away from my own undergraduate education. And not only did he call my family to help me resolve an issue, he knocked on my mother's door.
Yes.
And so when we talk about getting things done, our men get things done. So I just want to shout out to your mentors, everyone who's poured into you, and especially those individuals from Bowie State. Bowie's a great place. Everybody go to Bowie State. Woo! Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kiana.
I have to give it up. I have.
Wait. I didn't even say how to find me. I'm Tori Rose. Find me by email. Just email me at connect2tori@gmail.com. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, no, honestly, we hold up our little sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, this has been awesome. And like Tori said, I do concur with her to bringing you back. Also, like I said, I love Bowie. It's an extension of my HBC family. I want to give a shout out to my Eagles at Coppin.
Okay.
As well. But my daughter loves it. Like initially she was going to go there and then transfer to Johnson & Wales in Miami. I mean, how do you compete with going to school in Miami? But then I said, well, just go for the semester. And, if you want to transfer, you can transfer. And then she was like, no, I don't want to go. And
that's a smart choice.
Yeah.
And look where she is now. She's in a sweet spot.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, she has grown. I mean, she's doing Bowie Women in Business, the Entrepreneur Club. I mean, I have just seen her just blossom and just all of those things. So I know the value of HBCU and what it can do. I think it really gives our children identity, and they are just proud of who they are. And so I do appreciate that. So thank you for joining us, you guys. Look, we got a part 4 and 5 and 6 coming, and we're going to bring Derrick Coley back for part 3B. We're serious. Like, there's so much great information here, but you guys stay tuned to get the rest of this series. We're talking about Black educated men in America, the value of higher education, the hurdles and the things that, they have to go through. And if you have men, young men in school, definitely let everybody know. Come back next Tuesday. We're going to continue this series, and make sure you subscribe and follow us. And you can find me, Kiana B. Jones, on all social media platforms. So thank you guys for tuning in to Connect the Corner.
Thank you.
And y'all can drop all y'all happy birthdays in the comments. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you next Tuesday. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.